Hi, welcome, and thanks for joining us for this Fireside chat. My name is John Berg. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Bringg, and I'm joined by Nick Sherman. Nick, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your time.
And today we're going to talk about scaling safe delivery and pickup during COVID-19. We know that the world is in a very difficult position right now, with delivery, pickup, and online ordering really becoming critical not only to business continuity, but also to society and to our customers at an unprecedented level. So today we're going to look at some of the best practices, as well as the challenges and technologies that enterprises are deploying to take on these challenges across sectors. So one of the biggest challenges that we're hearing across the board and across verticals is that delivery volumes are escalating dramatically. Every business is trying to do more with less. That can mean handling higher order volumes for pickup, having longer lines at their click and collect or curbside pickup for grocery, or having unprecedented volumes in restaurant delivery. Over the last week alone, we saw massive spikes in volume across restaurants, grocery, some types of logistics in many areas of the world, as well as general retail. And we're going to be sharing some numbers on that next week as well. So across the board, we see this growing demand that these businesses do more in terms of their online fulfillment, and they do so profitably. Now, I think this would be a great time to toss this over to Nick as our Director of Food Solutions. Nick, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. Well, these are definitely unprecedented times. And first of all, thanks everybody for taking time out of your day wherever you are, likely at home. So thanks very much. But really what we're seeing is that delivery has increasingly become a differentiating factor. And this current climate and this crisis is really just accelerating that. And business are really needing to keep up in order to stay relevant, in order to get critical things out the door, such as grocery retailers, and keeping people fed, such as restaurants. So it's a very interesting time. We're having a lot of conversations, obviously, with the field. And I think that the do more with less is a really great point. People have limited resources, or they're needing to repurpose resources to be able to achieve some of these things. One of the main challenges we're seeing is around picking and staging resources. So that's where we're really seeing a lot of bottlenecks, in that based on social distancing and health and safety regulations and guidelines, it's difficult just for people to actually keep up with the demand. So picture the back of a grocery retailer, and they're just trying to keep up with this influx in orders. Hard to do that when you need to practice social distancing guidelines and things like that. So that's definitely one. Another one is that businesses really, if they haven't already offered click and collect, they're just not logistically set up for curbside pickup, right? So we're seeing a lot of restaurants obviously really quickly turning that on. So most restaurants are takeout only. The dining areas have been shut down, and they need to actually be able to manage that bottleneck around their restaurants. It's funny, most of the McDonald's I go through, or Starbucks I pass by, there's huge lineups around them. So there's real logistical challenges that are coming up there. And then a very obvious one, John, is the delivery capacity. So do you have an internal fleet? And if you don't, how can you maybe turn that on and ask associates to start doing maybe delivery for you? And maybe having to access third party. And if you've never done that before, there's a lot of things to consider. Or maybe you're managing both of those together for the first time. So managing your internal drivers and, how do I hand off orders to external drivers or third party providers? So there's a lot of different things that are happening. And we're definitely having a lot of conversations with the field around those.
That's really interesting. And I think one of the pieces that really complicates all of this is that we're not only trying to do more in terms of working with a broader array of solutions and technologies and providers, but we're also trying to do so profitably. Every business that we speak to with right now is worried about continuity. They're worried about what they do with their employees, how they continue to service their shareholders. And across the board, people are trying to carefully keep an eye on their profit margins, not only so that they're more profitable, but so that they can better support their public, which is making this increasingly critical. Nick, you were sharing with me some of the purchases you made over the last week. In your personal life, what are you seeing as some of the purchases that you are making more frequently now, or that you're making online that you may not have made online in the past?
Yeah, well, if you were to talk to my fiance, she's doing a lot of online shopping and redecorating our condo with furniture. So we had some deliveries yesterday, which was interesting. We're trying to support local businesses by still buying some food online and having that delivered. We're obviously doing a lot of cooking at home, but we're trying to do that. So in my personal life, I'm definitely the Amazon orders and things like that. So I've been leveraging online a lot more. And I definitely don't think that I'm alone. I think that we're obviously seeing, you mentioned the numbers you're going to be talking about next week. Online shopping is increasing, very rapidly. And we really see that as being, here to stay. And that's the new normal. And the day after, we're all optimistic that this will end and there'll be a day after. I think that the consumer behavior is definitely going to be permanently changed moving forward.
Wow. So, with that in mind, I think it would be great if we could start diving into some of the best practices here now.
Yep.
And if we're looking at, what are some of these typical best practices when we're in these conversations with the grocers or online and retailer grocers, with these restaurant chains, with these logistic providers and retailers, what are some of the challenges and best practices? So to kick it off, I think you wanted to start by talking about customer communications. Tell us a little bit about the spectrum of customer communications and what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, I think this is a great place to start. And customer communications and just letting your customers know what's going on, how you're approaching the situation is key. So over communication is really, really important. Starting with your customers, this solution always begins with them. They're anxious and they're counting on you. It's important to make the customer feel safe at every single step along the way. So whether that is, during the marketing effort, when you're letting them know what your capabilities are, when you're ordering, when the order is maybe, in transit and you're updating them and they're tracking that, making a consistent effort to communicate with them across every touch point is really, really great. A good example is contactless delivery, obviously, is something that's really, really important right now. So letting them know across every touch point that, hey, this is what we offer. Here's how we're going to be enforcing contactless delivery so you can feel safe and secure, knowing that we've taken that consideration. So yeah, it's an obvious point, but keeping it consistent is really, really important.
Yeah, and I love that point that you brought up about customer centricity. Let's remember the mindset of our customers when they're ordering. Everybody's going through something that none of us have ever lived through before, right?
Yeah.
So our customers are anxious. They're more likely to pick up the phone and to call your call center, which is going to increase your overhead. They're more likely to not answer the door if a delivery person is knocking because they're afraid of exposing themselves. So communicating the safety measures you have in place at every step here really can help calm that anxiety, create a better customer experience, and save you money, right? Because that means people will be using fewer of your resources. They're going to be calling your call center less. They're going to be contacting your drivers digitally rather than in person. And in general, this allows you to properly orchestrate this touchless delivery. And I think this is a great place for us to jump into the next step here, which is about how you fulfill from retail. Tell us a little bit about automating and coordinating your retail fulfillment.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great place to kind of dive into retail fulfillment. So, click and collect or, pick up at the store or curbside delivery, it's called a lot of different things. But there's a lot of things to consider when you're now turning that retail location into a place where either your customers are coming to pick up their order or you have third party coming. One of the really obvious things is you may have, limited space. You may have limited parking spots or limited capacity, like I mentioned, in the drive-through location. So making the most out of what you have, and really that comes down to being efficient and carefully coordinating the timing of each arrival vehicle and when that delivery will take place. An obvious example is in the restaurant space, where obviously the freshness of the food is really important. So you need to time when that customer is going to be coming to the restaurant to do that pickup with the preparation of the food. So there's a lot of orchestration that needs to take place, and leveraging technology to manage all of that is really, really important. Other things like giving examples and directing the customers to another drive-through, for example, if one location is high in demand. Giving customers the right directions to the proper curbside lane or area where they're going to be picking up their food. These are just simple, again, logistical things that you can be doing to just make that process a little bit more streamlined.
Great. And let's take that apart for a minute. Streamlining is both about your own internal efficiency as well as being able to increase your capacity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in being able to increase your capacity at each location is really the name of the game here, because capacity is going way up. So, can you do more in each, 10-minute kind of interval for curbside, for example? So, like I mentioned, one a way that you can leverage technology to do that is to track your inbound drivers and customers, understand where they are in real time, and making sure that those orders are prepared in real time to line up with that. So, in a high volume curbside operation, giving your store manager or giving that restaurant manager that viewpoint and giving them that access, and then communication with the customer as well too. So, enabling, SMS or a phone call and things like that with your customers so that when they're coming, and all of that can be orchestrated and timed and coordinated to be able to keep up with that capacity.
Right. So in other words, I think we're saying that if you could typically service, let's say, one customer per 5-minute, let's say, grocery pickup or curbside delivery window, in theory now, if we can streamline things, you could service one customer every 2 minutes, or they could set up additional pickup lanes, right, in order to handle this excess capacity.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at how you can be more efficient down to that kind of increment of time is a great way to look at it. And really simply, it's just doing more with less, back to that original point, and being more efficient with the space that you have and the staff that you have and the resources you have.
That's really interesting. One of the things, for example, that I've heard in some of our conversations recently with, for example, grocers, has been the ease with which they've been able to onboard new technology that solves these problems, but also the way that technology is allowing them to handle exponentially more orders, right? With some of the grocers that we're speaking with, they're seeing 50, 60% higher curbside volume, which is leading to these massive pileups of cars arriving at all different times and gunking up the system. But if all it takes is a few road cones and a simple sign that says purple orders go here, right? And as you said, if you can communicate to a customer, you will be in the purple pickup line, and they have a big purple, sign above it. There's not that much effort required in order to coordinate with the customer. This is where you should go. This is when you should be there, so that all of these handoffs can happen just in time and as efficiently as possible, while of course maintaining safety. Can you talk to us for a minute about what it takes? We've been talking a lot about technology. How long does it typically take to onboard with some of this technology? Traditionally, orchestration is something that we said, can take a few weeks, and that was a rapid onboarding time. From what I hear more recently, we're having very different conversations.
Yeah, the conversations that we've been having are really, how can we help? They're really unique times, and I think that implementations are more centered around creating an immediate impact. So what we're seeing is a lot of technology companies are coming to the table with immediate off-the-shelf products that can be implemented really quickly, more in a more agile way and in a very lean way, and just create an immediate impact, and then really learn from that and grow from that. So I think it's been great to see how the technology community has been responding to this and taking the traditional implementation that could take a little bit longer, and really just getting things out the gate quite quickly. So that's what we've been seeing. That's the kind of conversations we've been having. It's really, how can we help, and how can we kind of get you through this?
Right. So, if we're talking about typical implementation times that used to be measured in weeks, now I'm starting to hear in my conversations with you and with the field that we're talking more about days or even shorter as required. It's really about whatever the customer needs right now, the enterprise needs, in order to deploy this technology and better serve their public.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so I think that this is a great place to jump into the next best practice, which we've already kind of touched on, which is contactless delivery.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what contactless delivery really means, both operationally and technically?
Yeah, so I mean, operationally or logistically, it's pretty obvious. It's having your delivery, made without having any kind of human contact and practicing social distancing. And really, what it comes down to is just ensuring people's safety. But there's different things to consider, right? You need to be able to actually manage your drivers and train them. You need to be able to communicate with external delivery fleets that you might be working with to ensure that, hey, can they provide this? Is this something that they can do? And then also managing a proof of delivery, right? So making sure that that acceptance is part of your chain of custody and that you're still tracking all of that. So kind of to unpack that a little bit, one of the things to consider when you're managing your drivers is, it's great to offer, contactless delivery, but are you providing the proper training so that they're aware of how to be compliant with that new protocol, right? So a good thing to think about in terms of leveraging technology is, having technology that can enforce the right behavior. This is unprecedented times, like I mentioned, and there's often, new drivers that have never done this before. They've never done contactless delivery. So, leveraging technology to make sure that these steps are enforced and that they're following the right process, and obviously just training. Really focusing on training those drivers and making sure that they know what they're doing. So what you're communicating to the customer is actually followed up on, right?
Sure.
We talked about. Sorry, go ahead.
If we're going to take a step back for a minute, beyond leaving a package at somebody's door, what does contactless delivery really entail? So how are you seeing retailers, restaurants, grocers, and logistics providers best serve their public and keep these deliveries safe?
Yeah, well, I mean, from my experience, when we've been ordering food, usually it's handed off to me, like over the threshold at my door. And now it's been left at the door. There's been a photo taken of that to ensure that I know that it's there, and that the driver is communicating that with me. So really, it's just maintaining that space and maintaining that social distancing and making sure that there is that chain of custody. So a way of doing that from technology standpoint is obviously here, just simply a photo that's being taken, so that the customer is seeing that. They're seeing that package is actually there. They can confirm that, and that's ending and completing that order, right? So that's really kind of the technical way that you're managing that. And then obviously communicating that with your external drivers if you're working with them. Hey, do they have this capability? Can they take a photo? Do they need technology to leverage to be able to do this? And making sure that you're prioritizing fleets, obviously, that can maintain these standards for a contactless delivery.
Great. And I think that really gets us to our next best practice, which is kind of at the core right now of the challenge that many of these businesses that we're speaking about are facing, which is limited capacity. So what are you seeing in terms of how businesses are addressing this? How are they expanding their delivery capacity when they're seeing, double or triple figure week over week growth in their delivery volumes?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really coming back again to that initial point of doing more with less. So really leveraging, more of your existing fleet, and being intelligent with the way that you're choosing to route and dispatch, those fleets. So being, intelligent about your capacity, how you're handing orders off to that internal fleet. And then maybe intelligently how you're dispatching to a third-party fleet if you're going to be using them. So being really, really intelligent with both routing and dispatching is a very easy way to do more with less. So we're really seeing that. Another really quick thing that we're seeing is some companies are just repurposing their existing staff to handle delivery. That's something that we've really seen, especially in the restaurant and the grocery space, is that people are just saying, hey, we've got some staff that want to work, and we're able to actually, leverage technology to have them handle delivery and get orders out the door. So that's obviously a big theme. And then the third one is leveraging third party. So, you know, it's no secret that the gig economy has been really critical in this whole thing. So folks like DoorDash and Postmates, you know, maybe leveraging those external contractors to add capacity to what you currently have to be able to keep up with the influx in orders. So those three things are really key areas of expanding your delivery capacity.
Great. You know, as we look at the second point here that you identified around reassigning your retail staff, how do
Yep.
you onboard somebody that's been trained to work a cash register or to clean tables to do a delivery? What does that look like? How long does that take? And especially nowadays when everybody's so sensitive towards delivery quality, delivery courtesy, on-time performance, you know, we don't have weeks to onboard retail staff. How are, let's say, restaurants and grocers approaching this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's a realistic point, right? You know, what is the actual way that we do this? You know, again, back to kind of the technology community that we were talking about. It's really about using simple technology that is intuitive. It's quick and easy to use, can be brought into your organization fairly easily, and allows certain things to be enforced. So you know, it's not complicated for that user to learn. They can actually, you know, log in and kind of see what they need to do, and keeping it simple. But obviously training. So really making sure that you're taking the time to train your staff about the key things, whether that's contactless delivery or specific things that they need to be doing in their day-to-day as a delivery driver is really important. But simple technology can really support that.
Great, thank you. Now, you know, one of the things that I would add here is when we say simple technology, this doesn't mean basic technology. It means simple to use. And one of the really important steps here is to think about what it's like for your delivery drivers. If they've never completed a delivery flow before, if they've never done touchless delivery, if they're new to the whole idea of communicating with a customer, it's important that you automate every step of that driver app. That means that from the time that they arrive for pickup to the time that they're at the customer's door and then returning, let's make this experience as simple for them by automating those delivery flows. And the right technology should make this relatively simple, right? You should be able to drag and drop, add some forms, add some logic, work together with a customer success manager as needed to provide your retail staff or anybody that's new, even if you're using crowdsourced delivery in-house, to make sure that your staff knows what's required of them at every step, and that honestly make it foolproof, make it something where they can't mess up.
Yep, totally agree with that.
Great. So as we come towards the end, we have one more best practice that we wanted to cover. I just want to open this up for any questions. You can submit through the chat on the side. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them, and we'll get to any questions that we've received at the end of the webinar. So the last best practice that I wanted to discuss today, you know, it's a little bit of a trope. It's something that everybody says, but what does this really mean? What is the role of data when we look at delivery logistics? And right now, as we're looking at these rapidly growing demands, we're really seeing data play a pivotal role as leadership look to understand what's working. You know, typically when businesses are new to delivery or rapidly scaling their delivery, their first question is, can we meet the demand? However, in today's economic environment, businesses aren't just asking, how many deliveries did we have? They're asking, how efficient is our delivery? How are we maximizing the returns? Because these are critical dollars and cents to those businesses, okay, as well as the providers that serve them. By looking at your data, you can better understand, where are my costs? Where am I slowing down? Which teams are performing well and which teams are performing more slowly? And when you can start to understand these areas, these restaurants, this region is performing really strongly, this region sees a lot more delays, you can increase your capacity by then going back to the teams that are doing well and copying their best practices and applying them in those other regions. You can look to your data to understand which of my delivery providers is helping me grow sustainably, is providing better customer experiences. And you can get that by looking at your customer feedback and ratings. It's really important to remember, as Nick said, succeeding today in your delivery, in your fulfillment, your curbside, and your click and collect is not only about helping your business in the short term, but it's about the day after. It's about what happens next, because we all know that there will be a day after, right? And once we get through this together, customer behavior will change. 30% of US shoppers in the last week that ordered grocery online did so for the first time. That means that markets that traditionally were growing at relatively rapid rates, and we're talking about moving from 3% to 6% penetration, are that those growth rates are growing exponentially in a very short period of time. And as Nick knows, and he's going to share some examples with us, when customers get used to ordering from one particular provider, when they learn that this grocer offers an amazing customer experience, this restaurant stands by me, I can count on their delivery times, I know that they can handle my order, I know what that experience will look like, then they're going to continue to order from them even after this corona crisis has passed. And that's the biggest opportunity here right now. It's not just about servicing the needs of your business today, but it's about setting yourself up to be able to grow sustainably long into the future. Nick, do you want to help us unpack some of the trends that we've seen shaping the market over the last couple of years that are really accelerating over the last few weeks?
Yeah, well, there's a lot in your statement there. I think you covered a lot of ground, but I think that, you know, relating to what our CEO and our co-founder Lior talk about a lot is really the age of Amazon. And we talk about the age of Amazon in the sense that customers are demanding more. They're demanding more in terms of the delivery and the options and really just the convenience of being able to have things come to them, right? That's the simple reality that we're all living in. And to really distill it down, I think that this reality of not being able to leave your home, but still wanting to have a semblance of a normal life is accelerating that, right? So where I can be able to reach out to a company, get what I need to get, have a consistent, efficient and convenient experience as that order comes to me, you know, I'm going to be loyal to that company. So I think we're all seeing that. I'm sure that everybody on this call has placed some sort of order in the last 48 hours, I can imagine. And what we're seeing is that this is going to accelerate those trends. So, you know, the projections have been delivery will become more and more paramount and more critical for businesses over the next 3 to 5 years. That time is now here. It's here to stay. And I think that, you know, when we're all out of this and we're all, you know, safe and back with our families, this is going to be the new normal. And, you know, we can use this time optimistically and positively as a time to rethink the business, as a time to be reflective and to stand up ways to be able to make this happen. So there's definitely a great opportunity to delight your customers throughout this process and create, you know, a lot of loyalty. So, you know, there's a ton of opportunity, I think.
Okay, and in our last couple of minutes here, I just want to take one of the questions that we've received today. And Nick, I'll let you start with this one. The question is, you know what, I'll rephrase this because it's a bit long. Facing rapidly growing demand for delivery, how do you see retailers, or in specific, this as retail grocers, offering customers the right experience? You know, I think if I can paraphrase this, some of the things that we've seen in the market are grocers offering 2-week wait times for grocery delivery. Now, this is a time when customers are very sensitive about their supply chain and their food stability. How are grocers handling it, and what are the best practices?
Yeah, I think that definitely one of the best practices that we're seeing is offering curbside. So, you know, that's no secret in the grocery space. Sorry. Is that, you know, curbside is a really great way to add capacity to be able to allow customers to go online and then have the convenience of picking up their order. Different grocery retailers are at different stages of that maturity curve. So some of them are already offering it, and we talked about that, and then being able to optimize their capacity and things like that. Others, you know, really should start thinking about that and offering curbside. It's a really great way to allow that online experience to get activated pretty quickly. You know, that's one. I think another is really just giving optionality in terms of what customers want. So taking it a step further, and when I check out, maybe I want curbside, but maybe I don't. Maybe I want that to be delivered at a specific time. Maybe I want same day delivery. So I think thinking about the different channels, what's unique to your value proposition will also help answer that question in terms of, is it curbside, is it delivered from store, what's unique to us. But definitely those two channels are a very, very popular way of offering that online experience.
Yeah, and I think this very closely ties to something that you mentioned earlier, which is about logistics elasticity. And right now, delivery demands may be exceptionally high, whereas hopefully in the near future, but whenever it is that this crisis passes, retailers may not need the same fleets. Restaurants may not need the same
Yep.
delivery capacity.
Yep.
So a lot of this also ties back to this idea of fleet integrations. How can
Yep.
you easily spin up another fleet? How can you automatically add additional providers or set up business logic that engages additional logistics providers, some of whom may be newer to your segment, in order to expand your capacity really as needed? We're seeing things change almost on an hourly basis. Right now, given the pace of change in the market, I don't know that we're able to cover everything today, but I hope we gave you some really meaningful best practices. In closing, I just want to, wish you all health and well-being on behalf of the team at Bringg. Stay safe, stay smart. Nick, I'm going to let you close this off.
Yeah, thanks so much, John. Again, everybody, stay safe out there. We really appreciate your time, and I just want to thank John for getting so dressed up. It's rare that I see John in a tie like this. You look great, buddy. So thanks for getting dressed up for us. Thanks, everyone.
My pleasure. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.